Let's say you walk into a store and see a winter jacket with a price tag of $800. You're shocked. No way are you paying that. Then you notice the tag underneath that says, now on sale, $299. Suddenly, that $299 price feels, kind of reasonable. Even though $299 is still a lot for a jacket, it feels like you're getting a deal because your brain anchored to that $800 number. Now that's anchoring bias in action. Your brain grabs onto the first number that it sees, the anchor, and uses it as a reference point for everything that comes after, even when it's totally irrelevant. It's one of those mental shortcuts that we all take. And in your everyday life, it might mean overpaying for a coat, but in investing, it could cost you thousands. Hey everyone, and welcome back to From Wall Street to Your Street, the podcast that breaks down the smartest investing ideas without all that stuffy jargon. I'm your host, Ryan Flanders, investment advisor, CFA charter holder, and former coach who traded in his clipboard for a calculator. Each week, we peel back the curtain on how Wall Street works and how to make it work better for you. Now, if you've been following along, we're in the middle of our behavioral finance series, where we expose the hidden psychology that influences even the most experienced investors. And this week, we're digging into one of the sneakiest mental traps out there, anchoring bias. You might not know it by name, but trust me, you have definitely felt its pull. Anchoring was first introduced in the 1970s by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, two pioneers of behavioral economics. They ran experiments where people spun a fake wheel of fortune that randomly landed on numbers between 0 and 100. After the spin, participants were asked what percentage of African nations are members of the United Nations. Now, here's the kicker. People who spun a higher number guessed higher percentages, and people who spun a lower number guessed lower. The number had nothing to do with African countries, but once that number entered their minds, it shaped their judgment, even though it was totally unrelated. So how does anchoring actually show up in your financial life? Oh man, let me count the ways. First up, stock prices and the classic what I paid syndrome. Let's say you buy a stock at $100 a share. It drops to $70. Now, logically, you should reevaluate based on what it's worth today, right? But what do most people say? I'm not selling until it gets back to $100. Why $100? Well, because that's what you paid. But here's the thing, the market doesn't care what you paid. That number means something to you, but not to the company, not to the market, and certainly not to your portfolio's long-term health. It's an emotional reference point, but it's not a financial one. Next up, let's talk about real estate. Anchoring shows up all the time with home values. Maybe you bought your house for $500,000, and now you're convinced it's still worth at least that, even if the local comps and the market conditions say otherwise. You're not necessarily being stubborn, it just feels wrong to price it below what you paid. But again, that original purchase price has nothing to do with today's fair market value. It's just the anchor that's in your head. Finally, salary negotiations. Have you ever seen a job posting that says something like up to $90,000 or competitive based on experience? That's not just marketing, it's an anchoring tactic. By tossing out a high number up front, they're setting your expectations. Suddenly, anything below that up to number feels like settling, even if the offer is actually fair for the role. Car dealerships do this too. They slap that big MSRP sticker on the window to anchor you before the negotiation even starts. So why is anchoring so dangerous for investors? Well, because once we attach to a number, we stop gathering new information objectively. We twist everything to confirm that original figure. This can show up as losing stock too long, refusing to rebalance your portfolio, clinging to past market highs, or waiting for just one more dip that never actually comes. Back in early 2020, just as the COVID crash was unfolding, I got a call from someone I'd been working with for a few years, and we'll call him Cruz. A couple years earlier, Cruz had taken $35,000 in cash out of his bank account and decided to invest it. We built a long-term, diversified portfolio together, and for a while, things went really well. His account steadily grew, $38,000, $42,000, $45,000, with solid performance and a disciplined approach. But then COVID hit. Markets tanked. Uncertainty spiked. Even well-diversified portfolios felt the pressure. Cruz's portfolio dropped, not below his starting value, but close. At the lowest point, it hovered around $35,400. And that's when the panic started to creep in. He called me and said, If this drops below 35,000, I'm pulling the plug. I'll go back to cash and wait until things calm back down. Now here's the thing. Cruz wasn't new to investing. He'd seen ups and he'd seen downs. He had years of experience and had stuck with the plan through plenty of smaller dips, but he couldn't shake that one number, 35,000. This was his original investment, his mental anchor. Even though he was still above it, that line had become the benchmark in his mind. Falling below it felt like crossing into failure. He wasn't reacting to new information or fundamentals. He was reacting to this emotional threshold that had nothing to do with his actual goals or the market outlook. We talked through it, regrounded in the plan, and to his credit, he stayed invested. Today, that same portfolio is now worth over $50,000. But that moment, it was real, and it showed how even years of experience and a well-designed plan can be overpowered by a single, sticky number. That's anchoring bias. Doesn't care how long you've been investing, it just cares what you saw first. So how do you know if anchoring bias is showing up in your own decision making? Well, it's usually not loud, it's subtle, but here are a few red flags. If you catch yourself saying things like, I'm just waiting for it to get back to what I paid, that's a sign. Or maybe you're still comparing your current portfolio to its peak from last year, even if the fundamentals have totally changed. Or, and this one's really common, you feel strangely tied to a certain price, like you can't sell below it, even though logically you know the market doesn't care what you paid. That's anchoring, and it's sneaky, because those thoughts feel rational in the moment, but they're rooted in emotion, not in strategy. So, what do you do about it? Well, here are a few simple ways to loosen the grip of that mental anchor. First, start asking better questions. Instead of asking, what did I pay for the stock, ask, what's it worth today? Or would I buy it at this price if I didn't already own it? That shift in perspective can open up way better decisions. Second, set some rules ahead of time. You might say, if this drops 20% below my investment thesis, I'll reevaluate. Not emotionally, just based on your plan. That way, your decisions are proactive and not reactive. Third, bring in a second set of eyes. Whether that's an advisor, I know, shameless plug, a planner, or even just a rational friend, someone outside that moment can help spot the emotional loops that we often miss ourselves. And finally, try to use ranges instead of a single target number. So instead of saying, I'm selling at $100, say, I'd be happy selling anywhere between $95 and $110. That little bit of flexibility takes the pressure off and gives you more room to think clearly. Anchoring is just one of the many ways our minds can lead us off course, but it's also one of the easiest to catch once you know what to look for. So the next time you find yourself saying something like, I'll sell when it gets back to what I paid, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, is that number actually relevant? Or is it just my brain clinging to something that's familiar? Because on Wall Street and on your street, the biggest threat isn't always the market itself, it's how do we think about it? Next week, we're diving into confirmation bias. That's the tendency to only believe information that supports what we already think. And let's be honest, every one of us does it. We'll talk about how it shows up in investing, the news we consume, and even in the advice that we choose to follow or ignore. Until then, stay grounded, stay curious, and remember, Wall Street might move fast, but your plan should move with purpose. Securities and advisory services offered through Commonwealth Financial Network, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. Fixed insurance products and services are separate from and not offered through Commonwealth. The Flanders Group is located at 221 Maitland Street, Bel Air, Maryland 21014. Phone number 410-569-4506. Investments are subject to risk, including the loss of principal. Some investments are not suitable for all investors, and there is no guarantee that any investing goal will be met. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Talk to your financial advisor before making any investing decisions. The client example presented in this podcast is for illustrative purposes only and should not be construed as a recommendation. It may not be representative of your experience.
1